I wasn't here last Wednesday live streaming, and I've had a bit of a break from uploading YouTube videos because the UK had a Supreme Court ruling, and I was very stressed about the ruling. Even talking about it now, I can feel like the stress coming back up. I was very stressed about this ruling for months. Pretty much as soon as it was clear what was going on, I was stressed about it, and realistically, we could have had a number of different possible outcomes, and we've pretty much had the worst case one, or the reason, like, within reason, worst case possible result from this. The Supreme Court is the highest court in the UK, and the case was the Scottish government had made some new laws in Scotland saying public bodies need to have a certain quota of women in their like boards and organizations and stuff. I think it's 50%, I'm not certain. But anyway, the idea of that is obviously to, and this is important, to combat sexism, because if you look at politics and like CEOs and boardrooms and stuff around the world, it's mainly men, and that isn't because men are more competent, it's because of centuries of misogyny. And so fighting back against that, whether you necessarily think quotas are the best way to do it, at least the motivation behind that is quite good. And the Scottish government said, right, we're gonna do some quotas, and that's gonna just include all women. And then a hate group called For Women Scotland, which is one of the many like interconnected, incestuous, gender critical groups, like anti-trans activist groups in the UK, sued the Scottish government and said you shouldn't be allowed to include trans women. So obviously, if they are, if a organisation is in a position where it's having to meet a quota, so it's already having to like battle against sexism within the organisation, so they're going to be hiring the bare minimum number of women in that situation. Why would they ever hire a trans woman if they didn't contribute towards the quota? Of course, there are so few trans women in any of these positions anyway. There's like no trans women in government because we've all been forced out and the UK is incredibly transphobic. But this was just a legal case to resolve that. However, the laws that was built on was like how UK law works is it's very different to like how American law works, for example. The UK is like built on centuries of decisions and rulings and new laws that governments have brought in and stuff, and they all kind of like, it's almost like you're building something out of clay over thousands of years and you like stick a new bit on and some of it comes off and some of it covers over previous bits and you're like constantly making a new ever-growing sculpture. So they were actually resolving decades of laws, but the most important ones were the Equality Act from 2010, which is the most recent part of the legislation, and then the Gender Recognition Act from 2004, and then a bunch of other like sex and gender regulations from 1999, 1975 and previous. And this, they originally took the Scottish government to court and they lost. And then they appealed it and they lost. And they lost like quite convincingly both times. The judges basically just said, well, how the law is written just says trans women should be covered by these laws. Like that's literally just the word of the law. But as soon as it got to the Supreme Court, I started feeling a bit more nervous about it. When it was at lower courts, I wasn't so nervous. It seemed like it would have a more fair trial. Obviously, I was more nervous because when the Supreme Court rules on something, it overrules everything else. It's like the ultimate authority, basically, on law, apart from when the government changes law. So, but also what was worrying me about it is a number of people asked to be involved in this court case. Obviously, For Women Scotland were involved because they're the ones like initiating the case. And obviously the Scottish government are involved because they're the ones like defending the law that they've tried to, or the regulation that they've tried to create. But like a whole number of gender critical hate groups also said, we want to be heard in this case. And the court accepted all of them. So, like, Sex Matters were there, LGBT Alliance were there, like a bunch of other, like, Scottish anti-trans groups were there. And they were all just allowed to be present and bring their lawyers and write their bits and be considered by the court. And no trans people were allowed at all. So this whole big super important case, which only affected trans people as well, remember, like, this was just a debate about what rights trans people have. The whole thing was just a discussion in a room. I mean, from me in another country, because I live in England and this was being held in Scotland. We're kind of all one country, we're kind of separate countries, but you know, this decision's being made between a government which isn't my government and a hate group which doesn't even live in the same country as me. A whole group of hate groups, all cis people, not a single trans person involved, and it was just already springing up red flags. J.K. Rowling donated loads of money. Who knows what's gone on behind closed doors? But in the end, the Supreme Court announced that they were fully overturning the previous court decisions, the lower court and the appeals court, completely going back on that. And in a unanimous decision, they decided to basically remove trans people from the Equality Act when it comes to, like, protections against sexism, which is really bleak. There's loads of other very specific legal things which go on here, and it's very difficult to explain even to British trans people who know what's going on exactly what this covers, because we don't have just one, like, legal definition of sex that covers everything. We didn't before this, and now we still don't. We don't have just one set of, like, regulation which covers all these things. This specifically covers the Equality Act, and it doesn't cover things like toilets you can use. It doesn't cover what's on your passport. It doesn't cover, like, a whole bunch of things. And also, you might have seen various like, news organizations saying, but trans people are still protected by the Equality Act. And that's true to some extent, in that trans people were protected for being trans, and also women were protected for being women. Like, if you were trans and gay, you would also be protected for being gay. If you were trans and of a minority religion, you would also be protected for that, for example, because the Equality Act, you can be covered by multiple of these things at once. And they've basically just said trans people are covered for specific discrimination against trans people. However, we will see that actually sounds like it's completely worthless, but they're not covered. So, for example, I wouldn't be covered for any protections for anything sexism targeted at me. Only something that can clearly be, like, separated out to being transphobia. But obviously those two things are so intertwined that it'd be very easy to argue that one was another thing and then argue out of it, and then it would undermine trans people's rights. So this is definitely a serious step back for trans rights in the UK, like, very major. But it isn't like we've turned into North Korea overnight or something. We have gone from being one of the safer countries for trans people in terms of paper rights in the world or in Europe, to not one of the safer ones. We've probably jumped down the global ranking quite a lot. And that is just in terms of paper rights. And when I say that, I mean, like, what kind of, in theory, legal things the law will back you up on. Obviously, you could have loads of paper rights, but if the society is violent towards you, then it's meaningless. And you could have no paper rights, but if everyone treats you fairly, then it doesn't matter. But obviously, those two things are linked. Anyway, enough of what's happened. We will go into it more later on. There'll be more videos out in the week about this. But yeah, when this ruling was coming up, they announced that it was going to come out on Wednesday. I didn't know what time. I was just so terrified of fearing like the worst case, even if not, like, this is one of the worst case rulings where they basically said trans women have no protections. They could have ruled a slightly more complicated ruling where they said, oh, it doesn't apply this time, it does apply this time, or they could have been like a neutral ruling where they're just like, well, we encourage the government to sort this out and we're not going to do anything. There could have been a positive one, but I was predicting and suspecting a negative result. Yeah, so I was feeling like really sick leading up to this, like ill, super stressed. I asked my I didn't really know what to do. I didn't know what I was going to do if the result was negative. I just thought, like, am I going to have a breakdown? I just don't know. So I called my mum, who is like super supportive, who I really love a lot, and who loves me, and just said, like, what the hell am I even going to do with this? And she very kindly came over to my house and sat with me, basically waiting for this to happen. And the result was terrible, and I basically just cried all day and hugged my mum and just felt like I had no idea what to do. I don't think that I'm the only trans person who did that. I said on Blue Sky, if anyone's welcome to reach out to me. I had so many DMs. Probably less than 100, probably more than 50 people DM'd me, UK trans people, saying something similar. Some people said they had to go home from work. Some people said they had a breakdown. One lady said that their colleagues called an ambulance for them because they just kind of collapsed. It was pretty grim. I didn't really sleep much the night before. I didn't really sleep much that night either. So that's why I cancelled the show last week, because I thought if I try and do this show, I wouldn't know what to say. Because I hadn't had any time to like collect my thoughts and emotions. I thought I'd probably just cry on air the whole time, which I just don't think would have been helpful for anyone. But also I don't think I could really provide any analysis or information or pushback. I just needed to cry. And I think some people are good in times of crisis and some people aren't, and I don't necessarily think that I am. Or maybe I'm good in certain types of crisis, but not in other types of crisis. I'm not good when I'm late for a flight, but I'm very good when, like, the dinner has gone totally wrong and I need to rescue it. Like, there are different types of crisis. I'm not good when I am worrying about my human rights. I did have multiple panic attacks in the day. I just cried the whole time. Felt really just grim. Since then, it's only actually been 1 week, though it seems like it's been a long time. There's been a lot of stuff that's happened, but my emotions have started like distilling, I guess, or I've been able to make sense of them more, and also understanding the like rational side and the arguments more, to like work out what I think and what I need to say and all that kind of stuff. Let's just lose the headphones for now. Don't know if we're listening to anything today anyway. So I'm feeling less lost now, but still, I think the main two emotions that I'm feeling at the moment are just fear, like raw fear of the future. I do feel like anything is possible from here. I feel like it is possible that there is such a backlash that nothing more happens, or even this is the start of the pendulum swinging back and we fight and get these rights back. That's possible. I also do think that I'm not going to say equally possible, but it's also not impossible that this is like the first major domino, and then it's, they could be arresting trans people for using the toilets and banning our healthcare and all kinds of stuff. Like what's happened in some other countries, for example, Hungary. Hungary had a similar incident to this, and it's just got worse and worse. And they've been like arresting doctors that have been giving trans healthcare to people and stuff now. So I don't know. I don't want to fearmonger those things. I'm not making a prediction about any of that. I think that we aren't powerless, and I think that there's a lot of anger coming from this. So we need to like capture that and do something, which is what we're going to talk about later. But I think that fear is like the half of what I'm feeling, and particularly like in the night, I finding that I can go to sleep okay, and then I wake up 3 hours later like having a panic attack, and it went in the night. I don't know if anyone else is like this, but my brain just like goes a million miles an hour, just conjuring up the worst possible scenarios. At night, it's just much worse. But on the other hand, I think equally as much, literally like 50-50, the other like emotion I'm feeling is defiance. And those two are very like, they're almost like mutually exclusive emotions, because when you're feeling terrified, it's hard to feel like you can stand up for yourself and other people. It's hard to feel like you can do anything. It's very easy to like want to cower away and just like give up. And that stops the feeling of defiance. But when the defiance comes, that like crushes the fear, because it's like, well, fuck you. I'm not gonna get crushed by this. I'm not going to like comply. I'm not gonna do this. And that like keeps the fear down. So it like it's very hard to feel them both at once, but I think I am feeling them both at once. It's just that it's hard to like, only one's expressed at a time, I guess. And what I mean by defiance is, obviously there's been calls by the anti-trans hate movement, and the government, like basically all the major political parties, the media, like everything, have been saying that they want to ban trans people from public spaces, ban trans healthcare, like remove trans people's passports, all of those kinds of things. And like the idea that they might try and ban me from the toilet at work or from service stations, like, no, fuck you. That's never going to happen. I am never going to use the men's toilets in the UK, like never. I'm not going to, like, if they try and make healthcare illegal, then I'm not going to like stop taking healthcare. Get fucked. Like, I'm gonna carry on. And obviously then there's the little voice of fear in my mind, like, what happens if they start arresting people? What happens if they send you to a men's prison? What happens if they start injecting you with testosterone or something? None of those things are out of the question. Like, they have happened in other places, but I don't think we're near enough to that in the UK that it's a major concern right now. That's the kind of thing you have to constantly reevaluate. But I am feeling defiant right now that if I don't think my work is going to do anything about this ruling. I don't think they care. But if, an HR person was to come to me and say, oh, we've changed the work guidelines in result of this court case, we now want you to stop using the women's toilets, I would just say, well, no, obviously not. I'm not going to do that. Who do you think I am? And then go back to my desk and carry on doing my job and get fucked. Like that, I'm not abiding with that. But that, importantly, that isn't what the law says. That hasn't come out as a result of this court case. We are still protected in law, in some ways, to carry on existing and living our life. It's just removed a big support and has obviously opened up the floodgates of what's possible next for all of the like hate groups and stuff. So I think that what I would say to other people is, if you're just feeling fear, I think it's okay to have that for a time. I think you need to mourn. I think you need to like grieve and feel terrified and curl up and just cry. Like I did that. I don't think anyone's above that. I don't think you should judge yourself for doing that. Or if you're judging me for doing that, then like I don't care. But I think that you can't do that forever. You can't let them win on some clearly illegitimate bullshit corrupt court case ruling, which like overrode the letter of the law. They haven't won everything. They've made one like change to one act in law which can be undone, and they want you to feel terrified. Like, I know that admitting that I'm terrified, there'll be a bunch of gender critical people posting clips of this and laughing at it and stuff, and like getting off to the fact that they've caused all this fear and suffering, because that's what they want to do. But like, I just think it's important to be honest. But it's also important to know that is what they want, and you can't let them just do that to you. Like, fuck them. That they are worthless people. So if you're struggling, what I always find easier is to try and fight for someone else. It's much easier to defend someone else, like other trans people, than it is yourself. And when you get that kind of like just imagine all these horrible gender critical people, they've taken away your rights, they're laughing at you, they're enjoying your suffering. It can feel very isolating. But if they're doing that to someone else, like, are you just going to stand there watching these bullies like try and ruin someone else's life? No. Like, you're going to stand up to them. And so then just use that energy. And also another thing, like, people have, it's like almost like a community meme at this point. Like, if you can't even defend someone else, exist out of spite. Like, stand up to them out of spite. These are horrible, horrible people. And you being happy and standing up to them and being defiant and saying no when they try and control you upsets them. And it's good to upset them because they are horrible people. So, yeah, I think you can do it. I have done it. I am not free of the fear at all. It's like 50-50 at the moment, but it's a lot better than it was even 1 week ago. And I think that it's gonna hopefully emotionally within me get better, at least in the short term. And I think that you should know that you can do that too. This isn't the end of anything. We've all, like, when they passed the Gender Recognition Act and the Equality Act, that was the end. The gender criticals lost. And then now they flipped it back. And now it's the end and they've won. But actually it's not, because like, I'm still here. You're still here. There's more people now than ever aware of the horrors of what are happening. Like, I've had so many people who have before politely asked about trans rights, what's going on. I tell them and they're like, God, that sounds terrible. And then that's the end of the conversation. I've been like messaging me and saying, like, out of nowhere, I've had like people I barely even talk to like stop me and just being like, I'm really sorry to hear what's happened. Like, I support you and stuff. So like, more people are engaged over this. It's a bigger thing. So more people are, and a lot of people, this is like, last week was literally like the first day of them caring about trans rights and having it as an issue on their radar. And a lot of the gender criticals will take their foot off the gas now because they think they have won and they've defeated trans people and that's the end of it. And obviously, like, the thing is with us, that one of the many differences between this and why it's not like a both sides thing, when we lose a big thing like this, it affects our lives in a way that affects us, like, we're constantly aware of it. It affects us every single day. And so you're constantly in a position where you're like motivated to change something. Like, you want to stand up to it. You want to say no. You're telling people this is affecting my life negatively all the time. For the gender criticals, it doesn't affect them at all. It doesn't matter to them at all. Once they get bored with it, they'll be like, oh, we won. I don't see anything about trans people anymore. And the only reason they saw anything about trans people before is because they were obsessed with us. And if they move on, they'll just think they've won. And then if if the rights changed back and they didn't read about it, it wouldn't affect their life at all. So, for them to stay engaged, they are more like frenzy level, frantically engaged than we are ever, because hating people is something humans like to do, and for some reason it like consumes some people, but you can't keep it up forever. Like, I think even the most demented haters grow out of it a bit, like get bored with it, or it completely destroys them. But yeah, so this is unfortunately the start of a new sad chapter, or the new chapter which has starts off sad and scary, but it's not like the end of anything. It's literally like end of book 1, start of book 2, day 1, we're starting again. And that you might be like, fuck me. We've been fighting for like however many years. I mean, I personally been at this for like over 10 years now, and I'm exhausted, and now we've reached day 1. Like, what are you on about? But yeah, it's not, I think you need to like find a way of drawing a line and understanding that like the battlefield has changed, and now we need to try new strategies, get new people, but not like, oh, the old way has failed, we've got to reinvent everything. More like, things have changed both negatively and positively for us. There are more people aware of this than ever. There are bigger protests than ever. We need to capture that energy, be part of it, and then start going. So yeah, that's what's happened, that's where I've been, and that is what I think.